Zara stood at the window of the spaceship and looked at the small blue planet below. Earth, they called it. This was world number 10,001. She had been to 10,000 worlds before this one, and every single time the same thing happened: fear, disgust, rejection. She touched the glass with her pale fingers. Her kind lived for a very long time. At 127 years old, she was still young by her people's standards, but she felt ancient, tired, empty. The door behind her made a soft sound as it opened. Ambassador Kethmore walked in. He was tall and gray with 4 arms, from a species called the Vorthen. His people had no emotions at all, which made him perfect for diplomatic work. "We will land in 1 hour," Kethmore said in his flat voice. "Are you ready?" Zara turned around. "Does it matter? This will end the same way it always does." "Perhaps," Kethmore said, "but you must try. It is your people's law." Zara nodded. She knew the law well. Every member of her species, the empathic resonance, had to find a mate before they turned 150 years old. If they failed, they would die alone. Not from sickness or age, but from sadness. Their hearts would simply stop beating. Her people were special. They could feel what others felt. They could share emotions through their minds. It was a gift that should have made bonding easy. Instead, it made it impossible. Other species found her abilities terrifying. When she tried to connect with someone, they felt her emotions flooding into their minds. Joy, sadness, fear, love, all of it at once. Most beings in the galaxy like to keep their feelings locked away, hidden and safe. Zara's presence made that impossible. "Tell me about these humans," Zara said. Kethmore's 4 hands moved over a small tablet. "They are very young as a species. They discovered faster than light travel only 5 years ago. Primitive technology, simple minds. They live short lives and feel too much." "Feel too much?" Zara asked. "They display emotions openly. Very strange behavior. Most civilized species learned to control such things long ago." Zara felt a tiny spark of something that might have been hope. Beings who felt too much? That sounded different from everyone else she had met. The ship shook slightly as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Through the window, Zara could see land and water and clouds. It looked peaceful. Beautiful, even. The landing was smooth. The ship set down in a place called Nevada, in a flat area surrounded by mountains. As soon as the doors opened, Zara felt something she had never experienced before. The emotions of the humans waiting outside were so strong, so bright, that they almost knocked her over. But it was not the usual fear and disgust. These humans felt curious, excited, a little nervous, but not afraid. Their emotions tasted warm and rich, like good food after a long hunger. A woman in a green uniform stepped forward. She had gray hair and kind eyes. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "I am General Patricia Hayes." Next to her stood another woman with dark skin and a white coat. "Dr. Lisa Morgan," she said. "We are honored to meet you." Ambassador Kethmore spoke for their group. The usual diplomatic words. Friendship between worlds. Peace and trade. Zara had heard it all before, but she was not listening to the words. She was feeling the emotions around her. The humans were genuinely happy to meet them. Not pretending for politics. Actually happy. When was the last time anyone had been happy to see her? "Would you like to see our vehicles?" General Hayes asked. "We brought our best ground transport for you to examine." They walked across the flat ground toward a group of large metal vehicles. Human soldiers stood around them, but these soldiers felt calm and confident, not hostile. That was when Zara saw him. He was lying on his back under one of the vehicles, only his legs visible. He wore simple clothes and had grease on his hands. As they got closer, he slid out from under the machine and stood up. He was not tall or handsome by any species standards. His hair was brown and messy. His face had dirt on it. But when he looked at Zara, his emotions hit her like a wave. Loneliness. Deep, old loneliness that matched her own, but also something else. Kindness. Openness. A heart that had been hurt but still wanted to care about others. Their eyes met across the small distance between them. Without thinking, Zara reached out with her mind just a little. Just enough to say hello. In every other first contact across 10,000 worlds, this was the moment when her potential mate would scream, or run, or collapse in terror. The moment when her hope would die again. Jake Sullivan felt her gentle touch in his mind. He felt her loneliness and her fear and her desperate hope. He felt 127 years of rejection and pain, and instead of running away, he smiled. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever felt, he thought back to her. Zara's legs almost gave out. She grabbed the nearest vehicle to steady herself. In 127 years and 10,000 attempts, no one had ever called her gift beautiful. Are you okay? Jake asked out loud, taking a step toward her. Zara could not speak. Her throat felt tight with emotion she had forgotten she could feel. General Hayes noticed something was happening. This is Jake Sullivan, one of our mechanics. Jake, this is Zara from the empathic resonance species. Jake wiped his dirty hand on his shirt before offering it to her. Nice to meet you, Zara. She stared at his hand. In her culture, touching meant sharing everything. All her emotions, all her memories, all her pain. She had learned to avoid touching anyone, but Jake was still smiling, still broadcasting that warm, open feeling, still thinking that her gift was beautiful. Slowly, carefully, Zara reached out and took his hand. The moment their skin touched, everything changed. Jake felt her full emotional presence rush into his mind. All of her sadness, all of her hope, all of her desperate need to connect with someone. It should have been too much for any mind to handle. Instead, Jake squeezed her hand gently and thought, "You're not alone anymore." For the first time in 127 years, Zara believed that might be true. Ambassador Kethmore watched this exchange with confusion. Dr. Morgan observed with scientific interest. General Hayes simply smiled, recognizing something special when she saw it. But none of them understood what had really happened. In that small moment of contact between two lonely souls, the entire galaxy had begun to change. Jake had no idea that his simple acceptance of Zara would soon start the largest war in galactic history. He only knew that the sad, beautiful alien woman holding his hand felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. And Zara, who had been ready to give up and let her heart stop beating, suddenly had a reason to keep living. The universe had just become a much more interesting place. 3 weeks had passed since the first meeting, and Jake could not stop thinking about Zara. Every day, the alien diplomats met with human leaders in a big building in the city. But every evening, Zara would come find Jake in his workshop. Jake had grown up without parents. He moved from one foster home to another until he turned 18. Nobody ever wanted to keep him for long. He learned to fix things with his hands because machines were easier to understand than people. Engines did not lie or leave or hurt your feelings. But Zara was different. When she touched his mind with hers, Jake did not feel invaded or scared. He felt understood. For the first time in his life, someone knew exactly what it felt like to be him. "Show me how this works," Zara said, pointing at the engine Jake was repairing. Jake wiped his hands on a rag. "It's simple. Fuel goes in here. Spark plugs make fire. Pistons move up and down, and that turns the wheels." Zara watched carefully as Jake explained each part. Her people's technology was much more advanced, but she seemed fascinated by how humans built things. "Your people make everything by hand," she said. "Not everything, but yeah, we like to build stuff ourselves." Jake picked up a wrench. "My foster dad number 3 taught me this. He said working with your hands helps you think better." Foster dad number 3? Jake realized he had never explained human families to her. I didn't have real parents. So different families took care of me for a while, then gave me back when I got too much trouble. Zara's emotions shifted. Jake felt sadness flowing from her mind into his. But it was not pity. It was understanding. "My people do not abandon their young," she said softly. "But they abandoned me in a different way." "How?" Zara sat down on a crate near the workbench. "When I was young, my abilities were weak, normal. I could share simple emotions with my family and friends. But as I grew older, the gift became stronger. Much stronger. By the time I reached mating age, I could feel everyone's emotions for miles around, and they could feel mine." Jake stopped working and gave her his full attention. "My first potential mate ran away after one touch," Zara continued. "The second one had nightmares for weeks. The third one went to the healers and begged them to erase his memory of me. My own family started avoiding me. They said I was too intense, too overwhelming." "That's garbage," Jake said. "You're not overwhelming. You're amazing." Zara looked at him with surprise. Through their mental connection, she could feel that he really meant it. "You do not understand," she said. "Let me show you what others feel." Before Jake could ask what she meant, Zara opened her mind completely. Every emotion she had felt from every rejection across 10,000 worlds flooded into Jake's consciousness. Terror, disgust, the feeling of being violated, the sensation of drowning in someone else's feelings. Pain so sharp it felt like knives cutting through his brain. Loneliness so deep it seemed like falling into a black hole with no bottom. Jake gasped and staggered backward. For a moment he understood why other species ran from her. The emotional intensity was incredible. Like standing in a hurricane made of feelings, but instead of running away, Jake stepped closer to Zara. "I get it now," he said. "You feel everything they feel when they reject you. Every fear, every hurt. No wonder you're so sad." Zara stared at him. You are not afraid?" "Of course I'm afraid. That was scary as hell, but I'm not afraid of you." Jake reached out and took her hand again. "I'm afraid for you. How did you survive feeling all that pain?" No one had ever asked her that question before. No one had ever thought about how the rejections felt from her side. "I almost did not survive," Zara admitted. "Many times I wanted to stop trying. But my people's law not forget the law," Jake said. "What do you want?" "I want," Zara paused. No one had asked her that either. "I want someone to choose me. Not because they have to. Not because of politics or treaties. I want someone to know who I really am and decide I am worth keeping." Jake smiled. "Well, you found him." Over the following days, Jake introduced Zara to human customs. He took her to a restaurant where she tried pizza for the first time. The combination of cheese and tomato sauce amazed her. Her people only ate bland nutrition paste. "Why do humans make food taste good?" she asked. "Because life's too short to eat boring food," Jake said. "We figure if we're going to do something every day, we might as well enjoy it." They went to a movie theater. Zara had never seen humans tell stories with moving pictures. She cried during the sad parts and laughed at the jokes. Through their mental link, Jake felt her emotions as if they were his own, but instead of being overwhelming, it made everything more vivid and real. Humans create art about emotions, Zara observed as they walked home under the stars. Yeah. Music, movies, books, paintings. We're always trying to share what we feel inside. My people stopped making art long ago. They said it was too emotional, too chaotic. Jake stopped walking. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Art is what makes life worth living. In his workshop, Jake started teaching Zara how to work with metal. Her hands were clumsy at first, but she learned quickly. Together they built a small sculpture that looked like two figures reaching toward each other. "It is us," Zara said, running her fingers over the smooth metal. "Yeah, but it's also everyone who's ever tried to connect with someone else." Dr. Morgan visited the workshop several times to study Jake and Zara's bond. She ran tests and asked lots of questions. "This is remarkable," Dr. Morgan told General Hayes after her third visit. "Jake's brain activity shows changes I've never seen before. He's processing emotional information in ways that should be impossible for humans." "Is it dangerous?" General Hayes asked. "The opposite. He's calmer, more focused, happier, and Zara is learning to control her abilities better. They're helping each other." But not everyone was happy about Jake and Zara's relationship. Commander Vextar, the military leader of the alien delegation, watched them with growing concern. "This is unnatural," Vextar told Ambassador Kethmore. "Humans are clearly defective if they can tolerate emotional contamination." "Perhaps," Kethmore replied. "Or perhaps they are simply different. Different is dangerous. If word of this spreads to other worlds, it could upset the natural order. Species maintain boundaries for good reasons. But Jake and Zara did not care about boundaries or natural orders. They only cared about each other. One evening, as they sat on the roof of Jake's workshop looking at the stars, Zara felt something new through their mental connection. Jake was nervous about something. "What is wrong?" she asked. Jake pulled a small object from his pocket. It was a ring made from the same metal they had used for their sculpture. Simple and rough, but made with love. "Zara," Jake said, "I know we come from different worlds. I know there's probably a million reasons why this won't work, but I also know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you." Zara's heart started beating faster. "Will you marry me?" Jake asked. Through their mental bond, Zara felt everything Jake was feeling. His love for her, his hope for their future, his determination to face whatever challenges came their way. And underneath it all, the same loneliness that had defined both their lives, finally beginning to heal. "Yes," she whispered. As Jake slipped the ring onto her finger, their mental connection deepened into something neither of them had expected. Not just shared emotions, but shared thoughts, shared dreams. Two minds becoming one while still remaining themselves. Across the galaxy, sensors designed to monitor empathic resonance activity registered an energy spike unlike anything ever recorded. On dozens of worlds, scientists stared at their instruments in confusion. Something new had just been born. Something that would change everything. But for now, Jake and Zara only knew that they had found what they had been searching for their entire lives. They had found home in each other. The universe could wait. Tonight was just for them. The news traveled faster than any spaceship could fly. Within days of Jake and Zara's engagement, every major world in the galaxy knew what had happened. An empathic resonance had successfully bonded with an alien species. For the first time in recorded history, on the crystal world of Zenthara Prime, High Chancellor Krextal studied the reports with growing alarm. His people, the Zenith Collective, had ruled their sector of space for 10,000 years through rigid order and emotional control. The idea of beings sharing feelings freely terrified him. This cannot be allowed to continue, Krextal declared to his council. If other species learn that emotional barriers can be lowered safely, our entire civilization will collapse. Chancellor Yathara, his second in command, agreed. The humans are clearly defective. Their minds must be too simple to understand the danger they are in, or too primitive to resist contamination, added War Commander Nexus. We should act quickly before this madness spreads. Meanwhile, on the hive world of Sectara, Queen Vexkala felt very different about the news. Her people, the Hive Nations, lived as a collective consciousness. They shared thoughts and feelings naturally, but only with their own kind. The idea that different species could connect the same way fascinated her. If humans can bond with empathic resonance beings, she told her council, perhaps they can bond with us as well. This could open new possibilities for galactic unity, or galactic chaos, warned General Zixmar. Unknown bonds create unknown risks, but Queen Vexkala was already making plans. Send Ambassador Trillic to Earth. I want to study these humans myself. On Earth, Jake and Zara had no idea their simple love story was causing panic across the stars. They were too busy being happy. Jake had moved out of his small apartment and into a house near the diplomatic compound. Zara loved the human concept of having a personal space filled with chosen objects. She collected small mechanical parts from Jake's workshop and arranged them on shelves like art. Why do you keep broken things? She asked as Jake saved pieces from an old engine. They're not broken. They're just waiting to be useful again. Jake held up a gear with worn teeth. This came from my first car. It doesn't work anymore, but it helped me learn how engines think. Zara took the gear and felt its history through Jake's memories. A 17-year-old boy working late into the night, teaching himself mechanics because no adult had time to show him. The pride he felt when the engine finally started. The freedom of having something that belonged only to him. You keep it because it represents hope, she said. Yeah. Everything can be fixed or used for something new. You just have to see the possibilities. Dr. Morgan visited them almost daily now. Her tests showed that Jake and Zara's bond was growing stronger in ways that should have been impossible. Look at this. Dr. Morgan showed them brain scans on her tablet. Jake, when Zara experiences an emotion, your brain shows the same activity patterns within milliseconds. But instead of being overwhelmed, your mind processes the emotion and sends back a stabilizing response. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means you're not just sharing feelings. You're helping each other regulate them. Zara's emotions become more controlled when filtered through your mind, and your emotional range expands when connected to hers. Zara understood first. We make each other better. Exactly. This isn't contamination or weakness. It's evolution. But their happiness was interrupted when Ambassador Kethmore received an urgent message from the Galactic Council. The four-armed diplomat's gray face looked troubled as he read the communication. What is it? General Hayes asked. The Council has called an emergency session. They want to discuss the situation. What situation? Jake asked. Kethmore looked uncomfortable. Your bond with Zara. Some species consider it a threat to galactic stability. Zara felt cold fear spreading through her chest. They want to separate us. I do not know what they want, but I am required to attend the session, and they have requested that both of you come as well. General Hayes frowned. Are Jake and Zara under arrest? No, not yet. But the Zenith Collective has filed a formal complaint. They claim that humans pose a contamination risk to other species. Jake stood up, anger flaring in his mind. Through their bond, Zara felt his protective instincts activate. Let me get this straight. We fell in love and now that's everyone else's problem? Love between species has always been rare, Kethmore explained. Most attempts end in madness or death. Your success threatens beliefs that many civilizations consider fundamental. Dr. Morgan leaned forward. What kind of beliefs? That emotional barriers exist for protection. That species should remain separate to maintain order. That beings like Zara are dangerous precisely because they can break down those barriers. Zara's sadness flooded through the mental link. Jake immediately sent back waves of comfort and determination. We're not going to let them break us up, he told her. You may not have a choice, Kethmore said gently. The Galactic Council has powers you cannot imagine. If they decide that your bond threatens galactic peace, they can order it dissolved by force. How? Jake demanded. Kethmore hesitated. Memory erasure, surgical removal of Zara's empathic abilities, physical separation across different sectors of space. Jake felt Zara's terror spike through their connection. Without thinking, he pulled her close and sent every ounce of love and protection he could through their bond. Over my dead body, he said quietly. General Hayes cleared her throat. Before we start making threats, let's see what the Council actually wants. When is this session? 3 days. It will be held on Neutral Space Station Omega-7. Then we go prepared. Hayes turned to Dr. Morgan. I want every piece of data you have on Jake and Zara's bond. Research, brain scans, psychological profiles, everything. What are you thinking? Dr. Morgan asked. I'm thinking we show them that this isn't a threat. It's a breakthrough. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned something from humanity. That night, Jake and Zara sat on their porch under Earth stars. Through their mental connection, they could feel each other's fears and hopes swirling together. What if they're right? Zara asked. What if I am dangerous? Jake took her hand. You know what's dangerous? A galaxy where everyone is so afraid of feelings that they'd rather stay lonely forever than risk caring about each other. But what if we lose? What if they force us apart? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. You know what I learned growing up in foster care? People in power like to think they control everything. But they can't control what you choose to care about. They can move your body, mess with your memories, even change your brain. But they can't make you stop loving someone. Not if you really mean it. Zara felt his certainty flowing through their bond. You would not give up on me? Even if they erased your memories? Zara, I spent 32 years feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. Then I met you. And suddenly I knew exactly where I was supposed to be. You think I'm going to let some bureaucrats with fancy technology take that away? She smiled through her tears. The galaxy has no idea what they are dealing with. Nope. They think humans are primitive and weak. They're about to learn that we're primitive and stubborn. Very different things. 3 days later, Jake and Zara boarded a human transport ship bound for Space Station Omega-7. General Hayes, Dr. Morgan, and a small team of diplomats went with them. As Earth grew smaller behind them, Jake felt nervous energy building in his chest. But through their bond, Zara sent him waves of calm determination. Whatever happens, she whispered, I am glad we found each other. Jake squeezed her hand. This isn't over. It's just getting started. Neither of them realized how prophetic those words would prove to be. The Galactic Council session would indeed be just the beginning. Not of their separation, but of the largest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. And it all started because one lonely human mechanic decided that love was worth fighting for. Space Station Omega-7 was bigger than any human city. It floated in empty space between 3 solar systems, serving as neutral ground for galactic politics. When Jake first saw it through the transport ship's window, he felt very small. 12 million beings live here, Zara told him through their mental link. Representatives from every known species. Jake watched ships arriving from all directions. Some looked like metal insects. Others glowed with their own light. A few seemed to be made of living crystal. And they're all here because of us? Because of what we represent, Zara corrected. Change, fear, hope. Different species see different things when they look at our bond. The human delegation was given quarters in the outer ring of the station. Jake had never been in space before, and the artificial gravity made him feel dizzy, but Zara's presence in his mind helped him stay calm. Ambassador Kethamore briefed them on what to expect. The session will include representatives from 847 species. High Chancellor Krextal of the Zenith Collective will present the case against your bond. Queen Vexkala of the Hive Nations will argue in favor. Other factions remain undecided. What exactly is Krextal going to say? General Hayes asked. That humans are mentally defective and pose a contamination risk to the galaxy. That Zara's bond with Jake proves empathic beings are dangerous and should be isolated or eliminated. Jake felt anger building in his chest. Eliminated? It is just politics, Kethamore said. But politics in the galaxy can become very real very quickly. The session was held in a massive chamber at the center of the station. Jake had never seen so many different forms of life in one place. Beings made of gas floated near the ceiling. Rock creatures sat in specially reinforced chairs. Things that looked like living plants grew from the floor itself. High Chancellor Krextal stood 12 feet tall and gleamed like polished diamond. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the chamber like breaking glass. Fellow counselors, Krextal began, we face a crisis that threatens the very foundation of galactic civilization. For 10,000 years, we have maintained peace through careful separation of species. We have learned that some forms of contact are too dangerous to allow. Murmurs of agreement came from several sections of the chamber. The empathic resonant species has always been tolerated because they remained isolated. Their emotional contamination affected only themselves. But now we see the danger of allowing them contact with inferior species. Jake started to stand up, but General Hayes put a hand on his arm. Wait, she whispered. Krextal continued. These humans lack the mental discipline necessary to resist emotional invasion. They welcome it, even encourage it. This proves they are unfit for galactic society. More murmurs, louder this time. I propose immediate quarantine of the human homeworld. All contact must cease until proper emotional barriers can be surgically installed in their population. The aberrant bonding between the human Jake and the contaminated individual Zara must be dissolved for the safety of both parties. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species voiced strong agreement. Others seemed uncertain. Jake felt Zara's fear spiking through their connection and immediately sent back waves of protective love. Queen Vexkala rose to respond. She was smaller than Krextal, but moved with fluid grace. Her voice carried the harmony of 1,000 minds speaking as one. Honored counselors, she began. High Chancellor Krextal speaks from fear, not wisdom. Yes, the bond between human and empathic resonance is unprecedented, but is it dangerous or is it evolution? She gestured toward Jake and Zara. Look at them. Do you see madness? Contamination? I see two beings who have found balance together. The human is not overwhelmed by the empath's abilities. Instead, he helps regulate them. And she helps him access emotional depths his species rarely achieves alone. Unnatural, Krextal interrupted. Chaos masquerading as harmony. Perhaps, Queen Vexkala replied calmly. Or perhaps we have clung to artificial barriers for so long that we have forgotten what natural connection looks like. The debate raged for hours. Species after species stood to voice their opinions. Some demanded immediate action against humanity. Others called for further study. A few brave voices suggested that Jake and Zara's bond might be something wonderful rather than terrible. Finally, Council Speaker Mordeth called for order. The ancient being looked like a tree made of living metal, older than most civilizations. We will hear from the subjects themselves, Mordeth announced. Let the human Jake Sullivan speak for his species. Jake's heart pounded as he stood up. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on him. He was just a mechanic from Nevada. What could he possibly say to convince the rulers of the galaxy? Then he felt Zara's love flowing through their bond, giving him strength. I'm not a diplomat, Jake began. I'm not a scientist or a politician. I fix engines for a living, but I know about broken things and I know about things that work. He paused, looking around the chamber. You want to know if my bond with Zara is dangerous? Yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to fear. It's dangerous to loneliness. It's dangerous to the idea that we all have to stay locked up in our own heads forever. Some beings shifted uncomfortably. I grew up alone, Jake continued, bounced from home to home, never belonging anywhere. I learned to trust machines more than people because machines don't lie or leave or break your heart. I thought that was just how life worked. His voice grew stronger. Then I met Zara. She didn't try to invade my mind or control my thoughts. She just showed me what it felt like not to be alone. For the first time in my life, someone understood exactly who I was. And instead of running away, she chose to stay. Jake looked directly at Krextal. You call that contamination. I call it love. And if love is dangerous to your civilization, then maybe your civilization needs to change. The chamber fell silent. You want to protect the galaxy from emotional chaos? Jake asked. Fine, but don't pretend you're doing it for our own good. You're doing it because you're scared. Scared that if other people see what Zara and I have, they might want it too, and that would mean your neat little barriers and power structures might start cracking. Krextal's crystalline form flared with angry light. Insolent primitive. You understand nothing of galactic stability? Maybe not, Jake admitted. But I understand something you don't. Humans don't trade people. We don't give up on the ones we love just because it makes other people uncomfortable. And we sure as hell don't let fear make our choices for us. Jake sat down, his heart still racing. Through their bond, he felt Zara's fierce pride and love. Queen Vexicala spoke again. The human speaks truth. Fear has guided us too long. Perhaps it is time for courage. But Krextal was not finished. If Earth will not voluntarily surrender the contaminated individual, then stronger measures must be considered. The Zenith Collective proposes economic sanctions followed by military intervention if necessary. Military intervention. General Hayes stood up. Are you threatening war over a marriage? We are proposing surgical removal of a cancer before it spreads, Krextal replied coldly. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species supported Krextal's position. Others seemed shocked by the suggestion of war. Many appeared genuinely torn. Council Speaker Mordeth called for a recess. The various factions would deliberate and return with their final positions. During the break, Jake and Zara walked through the station's observation decks. Through the transparent walls, they could see stars stretching into infinity. I'm sorry, Zara said quietly. This is all because of me. If I had just accepted that I was meant to be alone. Jake turned to face her. Don't you dare apologize for being yourself. Don't you dare apologize for loving me. But if there is war, then there's war. But it won't be your fault. It'll be the fault of people who think love is more dangerous than loneliness. When the session resumed, the votes came in. It was closer than anyone expected. 312 species supported the Zenith Collective's position. 298 opposed it. 237 abstained. Krextal had won by the narrowest possible margin. The Galactic Council has spoken, Council Speaker Mordeth announced. Earth has 7 days to surrender the empathic resonance individual Zara for protective isolation. Failure to comply will result in immediate sanctions and potential military action. General Hayes requested permission to address the Council one final time. Honored representatives, she said, you have made your position clear. Now let me make ours equally clear. Earth rejects your demand. Zara is not property to be traded. She is a free being who has chosen her own path. We will not abandon her to appease your fears. The chamber fell silent again. Furthermore, Hayes continued, any attempt to take her by force will be considered an act of war against humanity. We may be young and primitive by your standards, but we know the difference between right and wrong, and separating two people who love each other is wrong, no matter how you dress it up in politics. Krextal's form blazed with fury. Then you have chosen extinction, humans. So be it. As the human delegation prepared to leave the station, Jake and Zara held hands and watched the stars. War was coming. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was mobilizing against their small world. But they were not afraid. 7 days. Jake said. 7 days, Zara agreed. Think that's enough time to get ready? Zara smiled, feeling his determination flow through their bond. The Zenith Collective fleet was a sight that would have terrified any civilized world. 12,000 ships from 400 different species, all united in their determination to end what they saw as a dangerous infection. They gathered at the edge of Earth's solar system like a storm made of metal and energy. Admiral Ben Cooper stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, humanity's flagship, and watched the enemy fleet approach. Earth's entire space force consisted of only 200 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels with military weapons bolted on. They were outnumbered 60-1. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet. Put it through. High Chancellor Krextal's crystalline face appeared on the main screen. Admiral Cooper, this is your final warning. Surrender the contaminated individual immediately, and your species will be spared. Continue this foolish resistance, and Earth will be reduced to ash. Admiral Cooper was a simple man who had worked his way up from enlisted sailor to fleet commander. He believed in duty, honor, and protecting those who could not protect themselves. Chancellor, Cooper replied, I have a message for you from the people of Earth. It's just 2 words, and the second one is off. Krextal's form flared with rage. So be it. All ships, begin the attack. The battle began with a wave of energy weapons that lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. Earth's ships scattered and regrouped, using tactics no galactic military had ever seen before. While the fleets fought in space, Jake and Zara worked together in Earth's command center. Their mental link allowed them to coordinate defensive actions with impossible precision. When Zara sensed enemy movements through the emotions of their crews, Jake translated that into tactical information for human forces. 3 ships moving to flank our left wing, Zara reported, her eyes closed in concentration. Jake immediately relayed the warning. Admiral, enemy flanking maneuver incoming from bearing 270. The human ships adjusted their positions just in time to avoid a devastating attack, but humanity had other advantages beyond Zara's abilities. Earth's forces fought with a desperate creativity that confused their enemies. Captain Rosa Martinez piloted her fighter directly into the hangar bay of a massive enemy cruiser, then detonated her own ship's reactor. The explosion crippled the cruiser and inspired other human pilots to attempt similar suicide runs. Engineer Tom Bradley manually overloaded 3 orbital defense platforms, turning them into gigantic bombs that took out an entire enemy squadron. When his commanding officer ordered him to evacuate, Bradley refused. Somebody's got to make sure these things blow at the right time, he said, staying at his post until the end. Again and again, individual humans made choices that prioritized others over themselves. It was a way of fighting that the galactic military had never encountered, but the numbers were still against them. Despite their courage and creativity, Earth's forces were being slowly overwhelmed. The enemy was simply too numerous and too powerful. That was when Jake realized something important. Zara, he said, can you reach other empathic resonance beings? The ones on the enemy ships? Zara's eyes widened. Perhaps. But it would be dangerous. If I open my mind that widely, I might not be able to close it again. Do it anyway. There's something I need to tell them. Zara took Jake's hand and opened her consciousness as far as it would go. Across the enemy fleet, every empathic resonance individual suddenly felt her presence in their minds. Most had been forced to serve the Zenith Collective against their will, their abilities used as weapons and tools. Through Zara, Jake spoke to all of them at once. Hi there, he thought. My name is Jake. I'm just a mechanic from Earth. I wanted you to know that what they told you about humans isn't true. We're not dangerous or defective. We're just people who think love is more important than fear. The effect was immediate. Empathic beings throughout the enemy fleet began to rebel against their handlers. Some simply refused to follow orders. Others actively sabotaged their ship's systems. A few managed to turn their vessels around and join the human side, but Jake was not finished. Using Zara's abilities, he broadcast his message beyond the battle, beyond the solar system, to every corner of the galaxy where someone might be listening. My name is Jake Sullivan, he projected. I'm a human from Earth. A week ago, most of you had never heard of my species. Now we're at war because I fell in love with someone I was supposed to be afraid of. The broadcast reached billions of beings across thousands of worlds. They say love is dangerous, Jake continued. They say emotional connections threaten galactic stability. Maybe they're right. Maybe love is dangerous to a galaxy built on fear and separation. Maybe that's exactly why the galaxy needs more love, not less. On worlds throughout the galactic community, beings who had lived their entire lives emotionally isolated heard Jake's words and felt something stir in their hearts. Protests began on dozens of planets. Workers refused to support the war effort. Some military units mutinied rather than fight against humanity. The carefully maintained order of galactic civilization began to crack. High Chancellor, Krextal watched his perfect fleet falling apart and felt something he had never experienced before. Panic. Shut down all communications, he ordered. Stop this contamination before it spreads further. But it was too late. Jake's message had already reached every major world. The idea that different species could connect emotionally, that barriers could be lowered safely, was spreading like wildfire. In the command center on Earth, Jake and Zara felt the galaxy changing around them. Through their bond, they sensed millions of beings questioning the beliefs they had never thought to challenge. "It's working," Zara whispered. "They're listening." The battle in space had become chaotic. Enemy ships were turning against each other. Some species that had joined the Zenith Collective were now having second thoughts. Others were demanding immediate retreat. Queen Vexkala's voice cut through the confusion on all frequencies. "Ships of the Hive Nations, withdraw from combat immediately. We will not participate in this madness." Other species began to follow her lead. The massive enemy fleet started to fragment as various factions decided they wanted no part in destroying a world for the crime of love. But Krextal was not ready to give up. With his remaining loyal ships, he launched a final desperate assault directly at Earth itself. "If we cannot stop the contamination," he announced, "then we will eliminate its source." Admiral Cooper moved the USS Defiance between the enemy ships and Earth. His small remaining fleet formed a protective barrier around their home world. "All ships?" Cooper transmitted, "This is it. They want to get to Earth. They go through us first." The final battle was brief but fierce. Krextal's ships hammered the human defenders with everything they had. One by one, Earth's protectors fell, but they did not fall in vain. Every minute they bought allowed more enemy ships to defect or withdraw. The Zenith Collective's grand alliance was collapsing faster than Krextal could hold it together. In the end, only Krextal's flagship remained, its weapons aimed directly at Earth. "You have won nothing," Krextal screamed. "Order will be restored. Barriers will be rebuilt. This contamination will be purged." That was when something unprecedented happened. Ships began arriving from all directions, but these were not enemy reinforcements. They were vessels from the marginalized species of the galaxy, the ones who had been excluded from galactic society because they were too emotional, too chaotic, too different. Cloud weavers who lived as beings of pure energy, void dancers whose thoughts moved faster than light, dream singers who communicated through shared visions, all the species that had been pushed to the edges of civilization because they did not fit the rigid order that beings like Krextal demanded. "You are not alone," came a message from the lead ship. "Earth has shown us that different does not mean dangerous. We stand with humanity." Krextal found himself facing not just Earth's small fleet, but hundreds of ships crewed by the galaxy's outcasts and misfits, beings who had been told they were too strange, too intense, too much. Faced with this unexpected alliance, Krextal finally understood that his cause was lost. The galaxy had changed. The barriers he had spent his life maintaining were crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. His flagship retreated into the darkness between stars, carrying the last remnants of the old order with it. The war was over, not through military victory, but through a revolution of the heart. 5 years later, Jake and Zara sat on the porch of their house in Montana, watching their 3 children play in the yard. The kids had inherited traits from both species, telepathic abilities combined with human adaptability and resilience. Their oldest, a girl named Hope, could sense emotions from miles away but also had her father's knack for fixing things. Their twin boys, Peace and Joy, could share thoughts with each other, but preferred to communicate by building elaborate structures out of scrap metal. The galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The Galactic Council had been restructured to include previously marginalized species. Trade and cultural exchange flourished as beings who had been kept separate for millennia began to meet and learn from each other. Zara now served as an ambassador, teaching emotional communication to species that were just learning to lower their barriers. Jake had